In this video, we're going to create our website pages. And to do this, we're going to start with the home page. And I'm using that wireframe that I created earlier. By this point, we've already created the menu, and the next step is to create the hero header, where there's going to be an image of me and a call to action. So let's make this happen. On the back end of your WordPress website, select the home page and edit with Thrive Architect. So before we get started, we want to think about how do we want to set this up? And the first thing is to add a background section. So that's going to give us a lot of control over the colors, which we're going to want for this area of our website. And next up, I'm thinking we add columns. And that way, we could have the hero image here, and then the call to action here. But another thing I actually would like to try first is adding the hero image as a background image. So to do that, under background style, you would add an image, and let's just upload it and see what happens. This is so much about experimentation. So one thing off the bat is just know that this image is very big at 2 megabytes. So you would normally want to close that down. Make it smaller. So now with this background section, I'm going to see if I can adjust the height of it. And I would want that image to be bigger. So it doesn't like that. So this doesn't seem like the best option here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try something else. I'm sticking with the columns route. So go half and half and putting the image in one. And then the next one, I'm going to put in my heading, which we created earlier inside of this PDF. It was under number 4, how to use my favorite tools and systems to 10x your online business. So I'm going to change that to heading 1. And I don't like it where everything's capitalized, so I'm just changing that. And then also make it bold. And after that, I want to add a call to action button. So I'm going to select button. And this is interesting here because they've added a new call to action thingy. They keep adding new stuff, it's crazy. But in this case, I don't want that. That looks too overly complicated. So let's just take the button, drag it under here, and later I'll set it up so when you click this button, a pop-up comes up asking for your email address. And I want to change the color to that blue, make it a large button. And also make it full width. So my favorite tools and systems to 10x your online business. So I'm going to change this later, but for now I'm just saying get my free roadmap. And now I want to change the color of this background section. So let's try with that off-white I had earlier. So that looks pretty good. And now we want to get rid of this extra space below the image. So let's get rid of that margin. And then you still see there's some space under there. So let's click on column and then columns. So that's where the space difference is. Because did you see that green line go down? Let's get rid of that padding. And there we go. So that's pretty legit. Now here's that little white line I don't want, so I'm going to get rid of that. And next up is I'm going to add a bar for social proof. Because if we look over here, you can see there's a bar there that we need to add. I'm going to add a background section and just change it to a random color for now. So one thing we don't need is all this extra space up here as well. Let's get rid of that. And I'm going to add a margin here. You could type it in, or you could just select the slider, hold down your mouse, and change it to what you want. So I would like to put that a little bit more in the middle. Now, one thing I'm not really digging right here is there's a lot of white space above here. And one thing we can do is on the columns, we can get rid of this padding, which will bring it up a little bit. But I think we can, actually, that does look pretty good. But one thing is with the margin, you can always make it bigger, but you can also go negative and bring it up a little bit. So that's what we're gonna do here. And now that I've taken a look at this button is too big. So I'm gonna change that to medium and click save. And let's just preview this to see what it looks like so far. So that's not bad. I mean, we made that really quickly. So I'm not sure about that white background though. It seems kind of boring. But at the same time, the green would be too much. But we could try it, because why not? So for the background section, I'm going to change the color. And we haven't added our green yet. To do that, I'm going to go to our design code and grab that key color. Paste that in and add that. Now obviously that's too much, but we could try lowering the opacity of that green. That's starting to get interesting. And I'm going to apply that, and I'll stretch it to fit the screen width. No, actually, I think that's not looking so good right now. Yeah, I'm going to stick with that white. That looks better. And next up is the social proof bar. To do that, I've already created images of the places I want to highlight for social proof, and there are 4 of them. So to add 4 images here, I'm just going to add a columns block. I'll put that inside the background section and do the 4 columns. Then I'm going to drag an image inside the column. And I'll just upload them all at once. And then select them one at a time. And I'll duplicate that image and drag it over, and then change the image itself. So we'll edit all the spacing in a little bit, but I just want to get them all down here first. And we can change this background color, so it doesn't have to be purple anymore. I'm going to go black and try with the lower opacity. Or maybe the off-white would be better. Could even do all white. So right now I'm making sure all the images are centered and also lowering the size of the bigger ones so it's consistent. The one thing is I'm going to select columns and make sure they're all in the middle for vertical position. There we go. And I just thought one thing I'd like to add here too is the number of students that I'm teaching. So we can add that to the left here, and it just creates a new column. There we go. And that can be heading 4. And I'm actually going to try changing the color here to that gray so it matches the other items here. So I'm going to use the app mini picker for that. Grab that gray color and change that. There we go. So that's starting to look pretty good, but there needs to be a sharper distinction here. So either this background color needs to change, or the background color here needs to change. I think this should be the white. And then this background up here should be the green. So as you can obviously tell, I'm not a designer at all. But through trial and error, I think most of us non-designy people, can figure out what works and what really doesn't. And another thing that I like to use on the websites is gradients. So maybe a gradient will look better here. To do that, you just click on this gradient button here, and you select the first color, and then you select the second color, and then you can just adjust it. So that's pretty intense. And you can change the angle of the gradient. So it's almost like the spotlight's on me. So that's not beautiful, but I think it's starting to look a lot better. Let me click preview. Now one thing is this looks really crowded, so I might take one of these out. I don't think anyone knows what this company is, so I'll just get rid of that. And make the text bigger. And it seems like this is lower than everything else. So what I'm gonna do is change the margin a bit. raise that up. And for this background color, we could probably do a little bit of a more intense green. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, never mind, I didn't change anything because there was a color underneath the gradient. All right, now we're getting somewhere. And I'll add a little shadow to this button. Okay, it doesn't need to be that much. The only thing I'm not sure about is the text on the green. It's starting to get a little bit harder to read. So we can try it with a different color. Yeah, no. No, thank you. So we're gonna undo that. Save that. And let's just preview this here. I think it's kind of weird going from this color here to the green. If you're a designer, you're probably watching this like, oh, just do this one thing, like it'd be so much better. But I don't know what that one thing is. But for now, I would say this is good enough. And I might just play with it over time. I'm gonna add some space here too. Okay. So that's that. Next up is tools, systems, and free training. For that, I'm going to add a new background section. And by the way, before we do that, remember on our page widths, we wanted to alternate between 1100 pixels and 960 pixels. In this case, I'm gonna change this one here to be 960, and let's see what that looks like. So that just requires a little bit of changing around. But I think that works pretty well. All right, next up is the 3 columns. And this background section is going to be 1100. And to do this, I'm going to select columns and add that right in the background section and do it into thirds. Now, one thing is I want there to be space around these columns. So I'm going to start out by adjusting the padding here. And what I'd actually rather do is change the padding on the background section. So let's try 20 pixels on that side, 20 pixels on that side. And then when we select the columns, we can change the gutter width, which is the width in between each column. And I'm gonna try putting that at 30. So now that's done, I'm going to change the background color for each column. And next up, we're going to add tools, systems, and free training. The first thing is to find an icon. So I'm going to drag that in and find an icon that represents tools. So for now, I'm just going to use this wrench. And what do we want to do with this wrench to make it look good? First of all, we can change the color. Next up, I'll add a header underneath. Change that color as well. I think that actually looked better to the right of that icon. So what we're doing now is we're putting a half and half column inside a third column, which you can totally do, which is great. Now let's try putting that to the left and that to the right. Let's get rid of that space on the top. Let's get rid of some of that space at the top. So there we go. That's the tool section. And then I'm going to add a paragraph. These are my favorite tools on how to build an online business in 2018. So I'll change that for later, but that's just what I want to add now. I'll add this text here, change the color, and then add in some padding. So it feels like there's a lot of space in between these two. So we don't need that. We don't need that. So I'm just going to make this a little bit longer because that's what it's going to be on the finished website. Tools are your secret weapon. So that obviously is probably going to change. But for now, I'm just getting an idea of what it all looks like. So I'll put that at 20 pixels. That's too big. 17, and then add a button below that. Make that small, not full width. Or what we could do is we could make it full width and try adding a margin to it. Okay, so it doesn't like that. Let's try making it 100%. And then add that margin. Nope, same thing. But this could actually look kind of good, where there's no space under the button. Get rid of the shadow. Get rid of all that space we don't need. Change the background color of this column. Let's just try white. Or what if we tried this? And maybe take the color down a little bit. So it actually seems like too text heavy. So I'd probably keep the description shorter. It's tricky. Does not look very good. Now one thing I'm just gonna do is add in extra background sections so I get an idea of what the rest of the website's gonna look like. I think this column actually did better when it was the full darker color. And then the background section could be lighter. Try putting the button in the middle, making it smaller, and add some space underneath it. There you go. That's starting to look better. One thing we can do too is just increase the padding. So for the column, make the padding 10 pixels, 10 pixels. Just do it all around. 10 pixels, 10 pixels. So really that's kind of confusing. So I added the padding on the text, so I'm just gonna get rid of that. And then on the column itself, I'm gonna change that to 30 pixels. There we go. And we can add some space on the bottom. The text. There we go. And what we really want that button to do is we want it to look about the same width as the text. So I'll just go 100%. There we go. So that's it. That's the tools. What we can do is we can just take this column, and actually there's got to be an easier way to do this because you can't duplicate columns. You can put everything inside of a content box and then duplicate the content box. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I'll take these columns, put them in the content box, take this text, take this button, and for the content box, just turn off all of the padding and margins. And click save. So now we can grab this, the tools, make sure we select the content box, duplicate that, and then drag it into the next column. And we just need to apply the same column settings to this column, which is 10, 10, 30, 30. So that was 10, 10, 30 pixels on the left, 30 pixels on the right. And if we go to our wireframe here, that was systems. And let's change the icon to something appropriate for systems. Systems. I'm not seeing anything that seems like an automatic winner here. Maybe I'll search like a gear. So you search system, you get an ear. I'll just do a checkbox because when I think of systems, I think of checklists. And then center that. And change the background color of that column. And now let's do the same thing over here. So we take that content box, duplicate it, put it inside here. Change the content or the column itself. So we had 10, 10, 30, and 30. And this is going to be free training. So where is free training? I'm looking for like a cap and gown or a class board or something like that. Oh, that's a good one for systems. I'll just do the light bulb for training. There we go. Okay. Training. And change the background color of that column to be the same color. Free training. Best systems, best tools. All right, now we're getting somewhere. And we could add a shadow to each of these columns too. And actually, for now, I'll just pass on that. And take a break.